This is Max and Mia podcast.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Max and Mia podcast.
Hi, guys. It's Wednesday, so you already know what that means.
Time to sit back, relax, and just listen. Today, it's just the two of us.
Exactly. I'm Rachel.
And I'm Matthew.
And we're really glad you're here with us today. Okay, so the other day, I had to ask my manager something pretty small at work. And I swear, I spent like 10 minutes typing and deleting the same message.
Wait, let me guess. The classic, hey, quick question message that takes forever to actually send?
That's the one. I rewrote it like 5 times before I finally hit send.
It's funny because I work at a startup, so things are supposed to be way more relaxed, and I still do exactly the same thing.
Right? It doesn't matter if it's a huge multinational like the company I work for, or a small startup like yours. Everyone goes through that.
There's just something about messaging your boss that makes your brain freeze for a second.
And honestly, that's a great example of what we're talking about today.
Today, we're stepping into the corporate world.
We'll go over some useful vocabulary for the office.
We'll talk about the rules that are actually written down somewhere.
And the ones that definitely aren't, but somehow everyone just knows.
We'll also get into things like making a complaint the right way, asking for permission, surviving your first day, and more.
So whether you're already working or you're just getting ready for what's coming, this episode's going to be really useful.
And hey, if there's a specific topic you'd like us to cover, maybe something about university, friendships, technology, politics, whatever you're into,
just let us know in the comments. We read every single one.
All right, Rachel, are you ready?
I'm ready. Let's get started.
All right, let's start with something we've all gone through or will go through eventually. Your first day at a new job.
Ugh, just thinking about it gives me butterflies. Even if you're confident, there's always that little voice asking, am I dressed right? Do I know where to go? What if I'm late?
Totally. And speaking of dressed right, let's talk about dress code for a minute, because that's something that stresses a lot of people out.
Okay, so for anyone who's not familiar with the term, dress code basically refers to the rules a company has about what you can and can't wear to work.
Right, and it can range from super strict to pretty relaxed. On one end, you've got formal attire, think suits, ties, that kind of thing.
And then on the other end, you've got casual, which usually means jeans, t-shirts, sneakers, whatever's comfortable, basically.
There's also something in between called business casual. That's more like nice pants and a button-up shirt, but without the tie.
Now, here's a useful phrasal verb related to this, to dress up. It means to wear something fancier or more formal than what you'd usually wear. For example, for the Christmas party, everyone dressed up.
And the opposite would be to dress down, which means to wear something more casual than usual. A lot of offices actually have Casual Friday, where employees are allowed to dress down a bit.
At my company, Fridays are casual. People show up in jeans and sneakers, and honestly, it's the best day of the week.
Must be nice. And my startup, pretty much every day is Casual Friday.
Lucky you. Although I'll admit, sometimes I actually enjoy dressing up a little. It makes me feel more put together.
Fair enough. Oh, and one more useful one while we're on this topic is to tuck in, as in tuck in your shirt. That just means putting the bottom part of your shirt inside your pants so it looks neat.
I've never liked that look. I always feel like it's choking me.
Same here. All right, moving on. Now, let's talk about something else you'll probably run into on your first day. Clocking in and clocking out.
Right. That's basically how you record your work hours. Clocking in means registering the time you start working, and clocking out is when you finish for the day.
Some companies have an actual machine for that, where you scan a card or your fingerprint. Others just use an app on your phone or computer.
We use an app at my company. You open it, tap clock in, and that's it.
Honestly, at my startup, nobody really checks that closely. As long as you get your work done, nobody minds if you start at 9 or half past.
Must be nice. At a big company, if you're even a few minutes late, you might get a message asking where you are.
Okay, now let's get into the unwritten rules, the ones nobody actually tells you, but somehow everyone just knows.
Oh, I love this part. Okay, first one, and this is a big one. Never be the person who takes the last coffee and doesn't make more.
That's a universal rule. If you finish the pot, you start a new one. Simple as that.
I actually learned that one the hard way. My first week, I took the last cup, didn't think twice about it, and walked away. Later, I found out people were talking about the new girl who left the pot empty.
Oh no, your reputation was ruined before you even got started.
Pretty much. I made sure to never do that again.
Okay, here's one from my side. Pay attention to how people greet each other in the morning. In some offices, everyone says good morning to everyone else like it's mandatory. In others, people barely even look up from their screens.
Oh, that's so true. And the worst part is nobody actually tells you which one it's going to be. You just kind of have to figure it out on your own.
Exactly. You've got to read the room before deciding which version of yourself shows up that day.
I feel like I'm always the overly friendly one at first, and then I slowly match whatever energy the office has.
Same, honestly. Okay, what about lunch breaks? That's a whole thing, too.
Oh, definitely. In some places, everyone eats together, like it's a whole social event. And if you eat alone at your desk, people might actually wonder if something's wrong with you.
Right, and in other places, eating at your desk is completely normal. Nobody even questions it.
At my company, lunch is basically sacred. If you don't show up, people will ask if you're okay later.
See, at my startup, half the team eats at their desk while working, and the other half disappears for an hour, and you have no idea where they went.
That sounds chaotic, but kind of fun, actually.
It really is. Okay, last one from me, and this one's small but important. Learn people's names quickly. Nothing's more awkward than asking someone's name for the third time.
Oh my God, that's so true. I'm honestly terrible with names. I once called a coworker by the wrong name for like 2 weeks before someone finally corrected me.
No way. That's brutal.
It was so embarrassing. I just kept hoping nobody would notice.
Well, now we know your weakness.
Don't remind me.
All right, but those are just the ones we came up with. I'm sure there are way more out there.
For sure. So here's a question for you guys listening. What unwritten rules do you have at your job? Or maybe there's one we totally missed?
Yeah, let us know in the comments. We genuinely love to hear what you've got.
All right. I think that covers the basics for surviving your first day.
Yeah, and honestly, the differences between working at a startup and a big company could fill a whole episode on their own.
Oh, don't even get me started on that. We'll get there.
Okay, so since we already opened that door, let's actually get into it. Startup versus corporate world.
Finally! But before we dive in, maybe you should explain what a startup actually is, just in case someone's not familiar with the term.
Sure, that's fair. So a startup is basically a new company, usually pretty small, that's trying to grow really fast. A lot of the time, it's built around a fresh idea, like an app or a new way of doing something, and it's often funded by investors who believe in that idea.
Right, so it's pretty different from, say, a company that's been around for 50 years and has thousands of employees.
Exactly. Startups tend to be smaller, and honestly, things move a lot faster. Decisions get made quickly because there isn't this huge structure you have to go through first.
Speaking of structure, or the lack thereof, I feel like that connects to remote work too. Does your startup work remotely?
Yeah, we're fully remote, actually. I haven't even met half my coworkers in person.
Wow, that's interesting. At my company, we do a hybrid model, so I go into the office a couple of days a week.
Honestly, remote work has its perks. No commute, I can work from my kitchen table, wear sweatpants all day.
Sounds like a dream.
It kind of is, but there are downsides too. Sometimes I feel a bit isolated, you know? You don't get those little conversations by the coffee machine or the small talk before a meeting starts.
That's true. Those random chats actually help you feel more connected to people. And doesn't it ever feel like work just never really ends? Like you log off, but your laptop's still sitting right there.
Oh, 100%. The lines between work and personal life get really blurry. I've definitely answered messages at like 9 at night before.
Yeah, that's the tricky part about work-life balance. When you're remote, it can be harder to actually switch off. Okay, so let's get into the dynamic side of things. What's different structure-wise at a startup compared to somewhere like my company?
I'd say the biggest thing is hierarchy. At my startup, it's pretty flat. If I need something, I can just message our CEO directly.
Oh, wow, that would never happen at my company. There's definitely a chain of command. If I need something from someone higher up, I usually have to go through my manager first.
Right. And because everything's smaller at a startup, people end up wearing many hats. Like my main job is marketing, but some weeks I'm also helping with customer support or testing the product.
That's actually a really useful expression, to wear many hats. It basically means doing several different jobs or handling a bunch of responsibilities at once, right?
Exactly that. Whereas at a big company, everyone usually has one specific role, and there's a whole team for pretty much everything.
True, and honestly, that often means more red tape, too. Like, if I want to change something small, I might need approval from 3 different departments.
Oh, red tape, good one. That's basically all the rules and paperwork that slow things down, especially in bigger organizations, right?
Exactly that. It can get frustrating, but at the same time, it also makes things more stable. There's usually a clear process for everything, so you know what to expect.
That's fair. At a startup, things can shift really fast. One week we're focused on one project, and the next, priorities just completely change.
That sounds exciting, but also kind of stressful.
Both, honestly. Depends on the day.
I guess it really comes down to what you're looking for. If you like stability and a clear structure, corporate life might suit you better.
And if you're okay with a bit of chaos in exchange for flexibility, startup life might be your thing.
Either way, both worlds come with their own challenges.
And speaking of challenges, there's a whole other side to this. Like, what do you actually do when something at work isn't working for you?
Ooh, good point. That's a topic on its own.
Definitely. We'll get into that next. Okay, so let's talk about something that makes a lot of people really uncomfortable at work. And I mean really uncomfortable. Asking for things. Whether it's time off, a raise, or just flagging that something's not right.
Oh, absolutely. And I think what makes it hard isn't necessarily the situation itself, it's finding the right words. Because in a professional setting, the way you say something matters just as much as what you're actually saying.
Way more sometimes. Like, there's a big difference between walking up to your manager and saying, "I need a day off," versus, "I wanted to check in with you about taking a personal day on Friday, if that works with the team's schedule."
Exactly. Same request, completely different impression.
And it's not about being fake or overly polished. It's just reading the room, right? Understanding that the workplace has its own kind of language.
It really does. And the tricky part is that a lot of people who speak English as a second language sometimes carry over very direct translation patterns from their native language, and it can come across as rude without them even realizing it.
Right, like, "give me the report" isn't wrong in English. It's grammatically fine, but it sounds pretty abrupt in most offices.
Whereas, "could you send me the report when you get a chance?" says the exact same thing, but it sounds much more natural and professional.
Tiny shift, huge difference.
So let's start with something a lot of people struggle with, making a complaint or raising a concern, because there's definitely a right and a wrong way to do it.
And wrong doesn't always mean rude. Sometimes it just means being too vague or too emotional or going straight to the extreme when the situation didn't call for it.
Like, imagine something keeps going wrong with the printer, and you send your manager a message saying, "This office is a mess and nobody fixes anything." Even if you're frustrated, that's going to land really badly.
I've wanted to say something like that before, not gonna lie.
We all have. But what actually works is something more like, "Hey, I just wanted to flag that the printer on the second floor has been down for a few days now. It's starting to slow things down for the team. Is there someone I can reach out to about getting it sorted?"
See, that's the move. You're specific, you explain the impact, and you're already offering to be part of the solution.
Exactly. And a couple of phrases that are really useful here. I wanted to flag something. I wanted to raise a concern. Or even just, I wanted to bring something to your attention. These all signal that you're being professional, not aggressive.
And if someone else's behavior is the issue, that's when it gets even more delicate. Like if a coworker is constantly interrupting you in meetings, you probably don't want to call them out in front of everyone.
Definitely not. A better move would be to have a quiet conversation afterward. Something like, hey, I noticed that in today's meeting I sometimes had trouble getting a word in. I just wanted to mention it because I think it could help the whole team if we gave everyone a bit more space to share.
That's good. You're not pointing fingers. You're framing it as something that benefits everyone.
Right. And sometimes you don't even go to the coworker directly, you go to your manager. But even then, the wording matters. I have a problem with so-and-so is very different from, I wanted to share something that's been affecting my work, and I'd love your advice on how to handle it.
One sounds like a complaint. The other sounds like you're being responsible and seeking guidance.
Exactly. Now, let's talk about asking for time off, because that's something pretty much everyone has to do at some point.
And people stress about it way more than they need to, I think. At least in my startup, it's pretty relaxed. You just message your manager and say, hey, I'm planning to take Thursday and Friday off. Just giving you a heads up.
That works in some environments, but in others, there's more of a formal process. You might need to submit a request in advance, get it approved, or at least make sure your absence doesn't conflict with something important.
So what's a safe way to phrase it if you're not sure which culture your office has?
Something like, I wanted to check with you about taking some time off next week. I've looked at the schedule and it seems like a fairly quiet period, but I wanted to make sure it's okay with you. That way, you're being considerate and you're showing that you've already thought about the impact.
Which is honestly what most managers actually want to see, that you thought about it before asking.
Completely. And there's a phrasal verb that comes up a lot in this context, to cover for someone. If you're going to be away, it's often expected that you arrange for a colleague to cover for you, meaning they take on your responsibilities while you're gone.
Hey, I talked to Sarah and she's happy to cover for me while I'm out.
Perfect. That sentence alone makes you look really organized.
Okay, and now the big one, asking for a raise.
Yeah, this one makes even confident people break into a sweat.
I've put off that conversation more times than I'd like to admit.
Same. And I think part of why it's so scary is that it feels very personal. Like you're basically asking someone to tell you what you're worth.
Which is a weird feeling. But the key thing, I think, is going in with evidence. Not just, I feel like I deserve more, but actually being able to point to things.
Right. So instead of saying, I think I should be making more money, you'd say something like, I've been in this role for 2 years now, and I've taken on a lot of additional responsibilities. I'd love to have a conversation about whether there's room to revisit my salary.
That phrase, revisit my salary, is so much smoother than I want a raise.
Way smoother. And I'd love to have a conversation about is a great opener in general. It signals that you're not making a demand. You're opening a dialogue.
And honestly, even if the answer is no or not yet, a good manager will appreciate that you brought it up professionally.
Absolutely. And here's something worth saying to our listeners. If you've been putting off a conversation at work because you're not sure how to say it in English, that's really normal. The language barrier adds a whole extra layer to something that's already hard.
But the good news is, once you have a few of these phrases in your back pocket, it gets a lot easier.
It really does. And that connects to something that's easy to overlook, the mental side of all of this.
Right, because even when you know what to say, sometimes the hardest part is actually getting yourself to say it.
And that opens up a whole other conversation, one we definitely want to get into.
Yeah, let's talk about that next. Okay, so I want to ask you something, and I want you to be honest.
Uh-oh. Okay, go ahead.
Have you ever had a falling out with someone at work? Like, not just a minor disagreement, but something that actually made going into the office feel uncomfortable for a while.
Yeah, honestly. There was a period where things between me and a colleague were just off. The energy was weird, communication had broken down, and neither of us was really addressing it directly.
And I think that's actually more common than people realize. Workplace conflict isn't always dramatic. A lot of the time, it's just this slow buildup of tension that nobody talks about.
Which is almost harder to deal with than an open argument. At least with an argument, everything's out in the air. With quiet tension, you're second-guessing every email, every message, every look across the room.
So let's get into this, how conflicts start, how to handle them, and some of the vocabulary you'd actually need in those situations.
Which, if you work with other humans, you will need at some point.
At some point, yes. So, most conflicts don't start with a big dramatic moment. They usually start with something small, a miscommunication. Someone feels left out of a decision, a tone in an email that rubs someone the wrong way.
That last one is huge. Written communication is so easy to misread. You can't hear someone's voice, you can't see their face, so a perfectly neutral message can come across as cold or passive-aggressive.
And once that seed of doubt is planted, everything after gets filtered through it. So here's a useful phrase for when something feels off in a message. I just wanted to make sure I'm reading this right. Really gentle, no accusation.
And a lot of the time, the other person goes, "Oh, no, I didn't mean it like that at all." And suddenly, the whole thing dissolves.
But what about when it's not just a misunderstanding? When someone actually did something that affected you or your work?
That's where it gets harder. The instinct is either to say nothing and let it simmer, or to go in and say exactly what you're thinking. Neither tends to go well.
Not usually.
So the better approach is to address it directly, but calmly, one-on-one. And there's something worth knowing here called I statements. Instead of, "you made me feel excluded," you say, "I felt left out when I wasn't included in that meeting."
Same situation, but one sounds like an attack and the other sounds like a conversation.
Exactly. And people listen so much better when they don't feel like they're on trial.
Let's also talk about the language people use around conflict at work, because in professional settings, people tend to soften it. Instead of, "we have a conflict," you hear things like, "we have a difference of opinion," or "we're not fully aligned."
We're not fully aligned is everywhere. And then there's to be on the same page, to talk past each other, to clear the air, to take a step back.
All really useful. And quick question for our listeners. Have you ever had to navigate a conflict or a misunderstanding at work or school? Did you speak up or did you let it go? Drop it in the comments.
We'd genuinely love to hear. And honestly, it might help someone else who's going through something similar right now.
All right, shifting gears, because everything we've been talking about, fitting in, navigating conflict, finding the right words, it all takes a toll.
It really does, and I think that leads us somewhere important.
Yeah, let's talk about what all of this actually does to you. You know, we've talked a lot today about language, what to say, how to say it, when to say it, but I think there's something underneath all of that that's worth naming.
The fact that work is stressful, like genuinely for a lot of people.
And not in a dramatic way, necessarily, just the pressure of performing well, getting along with everyone, handling conflict professionally, asking for what you need without coming across the wrong way. It adds up.
It really does. And I think what makes it harder is that in a lot of workplaces, there's still this unspoken expectation that you just push through. That being stressed or overwhelmed is something you deal with privately, not something you bring to the office.
Which is changing, slowly, but it's still there.
I'll be honest, I've had periods at work where I was running on empty and just pretending I was fine. And the tricky thing is, you can keep that up for a while, but eventually it catches up with you.
Same. And I think one of the hardest parts is recognizing it in yourself, because when you're in the middle of it, it can just feel like a normal Tuesday.
Yeah, I'm just tired. It's just a busy period. It'll calm down next month.
And sometimes that's true, but sometimes it isn't, and it's worth paying attention to the difference.
I think the simplest thing I'd say to anyone listening who's feeling that way right now is you're not weak for finding it hard. Work is a big part of life, and when it's not going well, it affects everything else.
And if you have someone you trust, whether that's a manager, a colleague, a friend, or a professional, talking about it is almost always better than not talking about it.
Always. It doesn't have to be a big conversation. Sometimes just saying, "I've been finding things a bit tough lately," to the right person is enough to start feeling a little less alone in it.
All right, on that note, let's wrap up.
Okay, that was a packed episode.
It really was. We covered a lot of ground today, from your first day at a new job, to startup life versus the corporate world, to handling conflict, to taking care of yourself through it all.
And if there was one thing I'd want you to take away, it's that the language you use at work matters. But so does the person using it. Give yourself some grace.
Well said. As always, if you enjoyed this episode, share it with someone who's navigating the working world in English or otherwise.
And if there's a topic you'd like us to cover next, leave it in the comments. We read every single one.
Until next time, take care of yourselves.
See you soon, guys.
To keep taking your English to the next level, click on the next video or explore the others we've made for you.